I'm Joe Anthony with ToolSelect.tv, and this morning we're with Mike Johnson of Legendary Builders. Mike builds residential homes in the mid-range to upper range, about $350,000 and up, from primary residences to, well, secondary homes possibly on the lakefront. Mike,
Joe,
how you doing today,
doing
man?
well. How you doing?
Cool. Understand we gave you a Bosch miter saw a couple weeks ago to try out.
Yep.
Okay, and this morning we're going to get your professional opinion on it.
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay, Mike, we've got our Bosch 12-inch compound sliding miter saw here.
Yep.
Why don't you tell me one of your favorite things to do with this?
Well, one of the neatest things I found on this one was it kind of changes the way I cut crown molding.
Ah.
Now, crown molding can be real finicky stuff, and getting the angle on crown molding is kind of a pain.
All right.
You have to cut crown molding. Typically, on my older saw, I would have to take it. I would have to set my crown upside down against the fence here. Now, I have to have this thing on there perfect. This back foot of the crown has to be flat against this side. Now, if this board has any bow in it whatsoever, it becomes harder, and it's also very hard to tell, am I really there? And little tiny movements here do matter.
Oh yeah.
So what you would do is you would you'd set it up, you'd set it to your 45, and you'd cut it, okay? And you would do the opposite with the other side of the corner. Now, if they're not both perfect, you're not going to get a 90 out of them. And what's going to happen is when that goes together, one side is going to overlap the other. It's not just an open joint. It's a problem. You have to come back with a file and clean it up. With this thing, you've got the dual bevel, which is nice, and you're also able to take your crown and lay it flat on the table. Now, when it's down like that, you know it's bright.
Yep.
And it's got dedicated detents in here for, I think it's 31.6 degrees.
Right.
I mean, who can dial in 31.6 degrees on a saw that doesn't have that thing set for you? I mean, you can get 32 maybe, but 31.6 is just right, and it's got a dedicated detent back here. It'll do both inside and outside corners.
Excellent.
And it cuts them just perfect. This is allowing you to get true 90-degree corners. So, you know, in places where you're dealing with stuff that's more likely to be closer to 90 degrees, like say you're putting crown around the top of your cabinets.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and you can build up your crown in advance and then set it on top of the cabinet, and you'll have your perfect cuts.
Okay, well, let's move on. We'll start with power. What do you think of the power of this saw?
I think it's plenty powerful. I didn't remember what the amperage on the motor was, but it never seemed strained.
Okay.
I've never really had a problem with power on any of the miter boxes I've ever used, and this one's included in that. It seems fine in that regard.
Okay, fantastic. How about durability so far?
Durability, I've only had it for 2 weeks, so as far as durability goes, I can't tell you in this case how durable it is. I do have another Bosch saw that I've had for 11 years, another 12-inch miter box, and that still runs just fine. Same motor, same bushings, same brushes, everything. No problems with it. I know that on that one, you got the detents where it locks in as it goes through.
Right.
That one loosened up a little bit.
Okay.
But that's not a real big issue. With this one, you know, my concerns would be with it being a slider. You know, you come out here and you're basically riding on bearings back here. I don't know if I can show you that better.
Yeah.
There's got to be some sort of bearings in here.
Yep.
And I don't know. It seems to me that over time using this, those are going to loosen up a little bit. You can see already you've got, you know, a little bit of deflection, and I don't know.
A little play. Yeah.
I don't know if that's a concern in 11 years, what that's going to be like. But that's one of the things that I would think about when purchasing a saw like this.
Okay, and I take it the old one you got didn't have the slider feature on it?
Did not, no.
How do you like that as far as a new feature then?
You know, there are parts of it that I really like, and there
Okay.
are some issues on it that I don't know if it's just, you know, you're getting used to a different way of cutting.
Right.
Or if it's you know, a problem that would annoy you long term. But with it being a sliding saw, you're not getting the depth of cut right here. I think they're kind of depending on you for a longer board or a wider board coming out.
Gotcha.
And then coming back in. And you know, I've seen some a little bit of an issue with, you know, if you've got lumber on here that's not exactly straight, it's got a little bow to it, which is pretty common. You know, if you've got a piece of wood on there and you're pushing hard on this side here to hold it against the fence
Yeah.
and flatten it out, you're really you're not able to hold both sides at the same time, obviously. So when you go through the cut, that other side that you're not holding is going to be free to spring back. And I've had a couple times where you're cutting that piece and that other side springs back and it kind of twists.
Yep.
And what it does is it binds on the blade and the thing wants to jump a little bit.
Okay.
Now I don't know if using the saw on an ongoing basis, if you just get used to that, or if that's just nature of the beast. There's people that say, oh, you just lock it down. If you just lock the slide feature out of it, you no longer have to worry about that.
But then you're back to the depth of cut issue.
Yeah, you're back to the depth of cut issue, and a 1x4, it barely cuts through a 1x4 in this position.
Yeah.
So if you get 1x6 lumber or anything wider, you really have to use the slide. So,
well, speaking of the innovation things, this one's got a laser sight. I'm assuming your 11-year-old one doesn't?
no, it does not.
Yeah, that was a little bit before Star Wars.
Did not have the laser on it.
Yeah. How do you like that? What do you think of that?
I don't really know. On this one, the laser seems like it's almost an afterthought yet, and I say that because it's basically an outside bearing or an outside bushing that you put on to hold the blade on, and because of that, the laser only goes on one side of the cut.
Okay.
So if I'm cutting, if I've got a mark on here and I'm cutting from this side, that laser is going to be right where I need it to be.
Right.
That laser, you put the laser line on your cut, the blade's going to go on the waste side and work. But if you're working from the opposite side, the laser is of no use to you whatsoever.
Okay.
So if I was going to go out and I wanted a laser on a saw, and I hear guys like them.
Yeah.
I've never really had one on a saw, and I've been able to do some stuff with it. But if I was going to go out and I wanted a laser on a saw, I would be looking for a laser on both sides of the blade.
Okay.
Something that shows exactly where your cut's going to be. So you can work either way.
How about portability and dragging this out, because you're definitely not doing your work in your warehouse here.
Yeah.
Dragging it out the job site, how's that been?
Portability on this thing, that's another one of my concerns on this saw. I don't mean to bash Bosch. I like Bosch, and I've got a Bosch saw that I use all the time.
11 years.
11-year-old saw. And my saw is not this heavy. This thing's a little over 80 pounds is what I understand.
Okay.
And as compact as you can get it, I think it's probably in a configuration
Pulling the arm
somewhere
out,
in that
basically.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
In that fashion, this saw is still 32, 34 inches wide and 80 plus pounds. So if I'm taking this into someone's house, I'm concerned that as you go through the door or up a staircase, all you have to do is touch a wall to ding it.
Oh yeah.
If you're thinking that you got to really stumble into something to make a mark, that's not the case. If you felt like you touched it, you left a mark. And,
Absolutely.
And that can be an issue. So for me, if I have this saw and I'm working on a house and I've got a couple upstairs bedrooms that I have to put baseboard on or casings in,
Right.
I might be a little hesitant to be carrying this whole thing up the staircase, which is nothing but labor, all those spindles, all those railings,
Yeah.
and through the doorways into the bedrooms and setting up the saw. I would probably reach for one of the more compact saws that I have and use that there. But as a shop saw where you're not moving around, I think it's great.
Okay.
I don't have a big problem with the size of it then, because you're really only setting it up once in the shop.
Yep.
And then you get to use all the neat features on it. I think Bosch realized that to some degree because they've made another version besides this that doesn't have the rails.
Okay.
They've gone and made it more compact. So,
Okay. So I'm guessing this wouldn't be too bad for new construction.
new construction.
But when you're going in and doing some sort of renovation and you've got a homeowner with the existing wallpaper and paint.
Yeah, you're not. Well, at that point, I'm not bringing a saw inside the house really, unless it's you're finishing off a basement.
Okay.
Or something like that, because they don't want the dust. And
Yeah.
you got a dust bag on the back of these things, but I have never really seen a saw where this thing actually catches more dust. There's more dust back here on the housing back here than is in the bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you bring something like this in someone's house, they're not going to be real happy with you. So if you're doing a remodel, you're working on some cabinet work or recasing a main floor of someone's house, unless they're draping off their house and going to keep the dust out, you're going to be setting this thing up in the garage.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Okay. And then portability wouldn't be too bad.
No,
You're
it's not so
dragging
bad.
it
If
through
you're going to the
house.
garage, I don't have any problem with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
How about, just comfort? 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours on a job site. How's this comfort-wise in your hand?
This is a very comfortable saw. This, the thought that went into just something as simple as where the trigger's at. I mean, they know that not everybody's the same here, and you can move this thing around to wherever
dang.
you like.
Okay.
And
Wow.
so you've got the trigger back here, but you've got the locking mechanism on the left and the right, so
Yeah.
you can go either way on that thing. And it's quiet.
Okay.
I mean, as far as saws go, I mean,
Right.
this thing's a lot more quiet than my other Bosch saw is. It's a lot more quiet than the other yellow one up there too. The DeWalt.
Okay.
So, that goes into comfort too. I mean, you run this thing all day long. I don't like listening to saws. The beveling of this saw, the
Yeah,
the
getting
work
into
that
the
went
specifics.
into the work that went into thinking about how to bevel the saw back and forth.
Yeah.
You don't have to reach around the back of the saw like you did my old saw.
Okay.
You can
Okay,
come right up
sure.
here to the front, and you can spin it around.
Nice.
And you can spin it in both ways,
Okay.
which is great. I mean, this thing.
And even your mitering, you're all pretty much in the same compact area.
Yep.
Okay.
And those controls work beautiful. And it's got a lockout for the detent. So if say you're right next to 45 degrees, you want to cut something, but the opening isn't perfectly square, which
Yep.
happens all the time.
Yep.
I mean, things seldom are dead on square. Sometimes they look like they're square, but in reality, you have to tweak it.
Mike, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Joe.
Today, we saw our Bosch 12-inch sliding compound miter saw. And if you want to compare this to other miter saws or other tools, remember, go to our tool comparison engine at toolselect.com. I'm Joe Anthony. Remember, get plugged in.